I never expected my own family to steal my spotlight, yet there I was, standing in the dining room doorway, my portfolio slipping from my fingers and scattering economic reports across my mother's polished hardwood floor. The sound of papers hitting the ground barely registered as I stared at the bizarre tableau before me. And then, I'll say, before my brilliant sister shares her economic insights, let me warm up the crowd with a few words about our family's charitable history. Bianca practiced, her voice projecting to an imaginary audience. She stood beside the mahogany china cabinet, one hand gesturing gracefully while Mother nodded with approval from her seat at the table. "Perfect tone, darling," Mother said. "Not too formal, but establishes the proper context." They'd been so engrossed in their rehearsal, they hadn't noticed me arrive early for our celebratory dinner. The dinner supposedly planned to honor my invitation as keynote speaker at next month's International Aid Foundation Gala. Mother spotted me first. Her smile faltered for just a second before brightening with practiced warmth. "Odette, you're early." Bianca turned, her expression shifting from surprise to something resembling pity. "Oh, don't look so shocked, you'll freeze up there without help." My chest tightened as a memory surfaced with painful clarity. I was 12, sitting at the piano during the Christmas recital, fingers poised over the keys for my solo. Then suddenly Bianca appeared beside me, nervously clutching her violin. "Honey, Bianca will join you," Mom had announced to the audience. They always perform better together. I'd spent weeks perfecting that piece alone. Bianca has the charm, Odette has the brains, they need each other, Dad would say whenever I achieved something academically. Meanwhile, Bianca's social popularity always earned standalone praise. My scholarship announcement dinner became about Bianca's new role in the student council. My graduate school acceptance was overshadowed by Bianca's engagement party. I knelt to gather my scattered papers, my fingers trembling as I collected economic projections I'd spent months researching. The familiar knot of disappointment twisted in my stomach, but something else stirred beneath it, something hot and unfamiliar. "This is my invitation," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "The organizers specifically asked for me alone." Mother's smile tightened. She exchanged a quick glance with Bianca before standing to help set the table. "Don't be selfish, dear. Bianca can help warm up the crowd." "It's not about being selfish." I stacked my papers, noticing with satisfaction that my hands had stopped shaking. "It's about respecting that I was chosen for my expertise." "But you get so nervous during presentations," Bianca said, reaching for a wine glass. "Remember that economics conference last year? You practically whispered your findings." I straightened to my full height, clutching my portfolio against my chest like armor. "I've been working with a speaking coach. I don't need an introduction." The front door opened and closed. Dad appeared in the doorway, briefcase in one hand, bottle of champagne in the other. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was brutal. Is everyone ready to celebrate our keynote speaker?" "We're discussing the presentation format," Mother said carefully. "Bianca has offered to introduce Odette at the gala." "Excellent idea." Dad set down his briefcase and moved to the bar cart. "It's just a short introduction, Odette. Takes the pressure off." I watched them, the three of them standing together on one side of the room, me alone on the other. The realization hit me like a physical blow. If I refused their help, I risked fracturing family peace. If I accepted it, I surrendered yet another achievement to their narrative, that I couldn't succeed without Bianca's social polish. My throat tightened as the truth crystallized. They had never truly seen me, only their perception of my inadequacies. Not my research that had attracted international attention. Not my ability to explain complex economic principles that had earned me this invitation. They saw only what I had been at 12, the quiet girl who needed her sister to complete her. I squared my shoulders. "No introductions. This is my presentation. Mine alone." The air in the room shifted. This wasn't our usual script, and for once, I didn't care. 2 days later, the subject line glared back at me from my laptop screen. URI, International Aid Foundation Gala, Contingency Plan. My stomach clenched as I clicked on the email, already knowing what I'd find but hoping desperately to be wrong. "Dear Miss Bennett," Bianca had written to the event organizer. "While my sister is certainly qualified to discuss economic theory, she sometimes struggles with public speaking. I'd be happy to step in if she gets nervous or runs short on material. Our parents agree this arrangement would benefit everyone involved." The room tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of my desk, dizzy with disbelief. This wasn't just passive acceptance of our parents' favoritism, this was active sabotage. Bianca had gone behind my back to undermine me directly with the event organizers. What hit harder was seeing my parents copied on the email. Their enthusiastic response sat just below. "Eleanor, we think this is an excellent suggestion. Odette has brilliant ideas but has always benefited from Bianca's social polish. We're so proud of both our girls working together." My hands trembled as I scrolled through my inbox, searching for other instances. There they were, a trail of digital betrayal, stretching back months. An email to the Economic Policy Institute, where I'd been invited to speak. "I understand. My sister will be presenting research findings. I'd like to discuss how I might contribute." Another to my University Alumni Association regarding a distinguished graduate panel. Each time, Bianca had positioned herself as my necessary complement. "Aunt Margaret is coming tomorrow," Mother chirped over the phone that evening. "She's attending the gala and wanted to have lunch with us beforehand." The following day, I arrived at my parents' house to find everyone already seated around the dining table. Not surprisingly, my father and mother occupied the head positions, with Bianca placed prominently beside them. I slid into the only remaining chair at the far end, feeling the physical distance mirror my emotional isolation. "I've been looking forward to seeing you present at the gala," Aunt Margaret said, smiling warmly at me across the table. Before I could respond, Bianca set down her water glass with a delicate clink. "I've got the most gorgeous dress being made for our big night. Midnight blue silk, it'll photograph beautifully for the foundation's website." "Our big night?" I repeated, my voice surprisingly steady. Mother patted Bianca's hand. "I've already told the Hendersons and the Blackwells that Bianca will be introducing you. They're so looking forward to seeing both Marshall girls on stage." "I never agreed to that," I said, gripping my napkin under the table. Father cleared his throat. "I mentioned to Eleanor that Bianca could fill in if your speech runs short. The foundation needs to maintain donor interest throughout the presentation." My fork clattered against my plate. "You did what?" I caught Aunt Margaret watching me, her eyes narrowing slightly as she observed my family's casual dismantling of my achievement. The stakes suddenly crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about one speech. The International Aid Foundation Gala would be attended by economic leaders from across the globe, people whose connections could significantly advance my career. If I allowed my family to diminish my role yet again, I wouldn't just lose this opportunity, I'd reinforce the narrative that had defined me since childhood. Odette the supporter, never the star. Despite years of professional success, my published research, my position at the think tank, the very expertise that had prompted this invitation, I felt doubt creeping in. Maybe I would freeze on stage. Maybe my presentation was too dry, too academic. The familiar weight of insecurity pressed against my chest. "This will continue forever if you don't stop it now," a small voice whispered inside me. "Odette, we invested a lot in your education," Father said, mistaking my silence for acquiescence. "Now it's time to be a team player. The family has always supported you." The lunch dragged on, with Bianca dominating the conversation with details about her dress, her planned remarks, even suggestions for how I should style my hair. I sat quietly, picking at my food, feeling increasingly invisible in my own story. As everyone moved to the living room for coffee, Aunt Margaret held back, touching my arm lightly. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low but firm. "I've watched this happen for 30 years, first with your mother and me, now with you and Bianca. It's time you stood up for yourself." Her words lingered as I drove home that evening, my thoughts churning with painful clarity. The question that had haunted me throughout my life now demanded an answer. Should I fight for my moment even if it meant potentially damaging these lifelong relationships, or find a way to compromise without completely surrendering my spotlight? The email from Bianca still sat open on my laptop when I arrived home, her words no longer shocking but illuminating, showing me exactly what I was up against and what I stood to lose if I remained silent. Monday morning brings an ambush I should have anticipated. My phone buzzes with notifications as I step into the elevator at work. Bianca's latest Instagram post shows her beaming at the camera, shopping for the perfect outfit to help my brilliant but shy sister at her big charity event. Proud sister, family support. Family support. My stomach twists as I scan the comments. 37 likes already, including from 3 of my colleagues. Dr. Marshall. Karen from Accounting waves as I enter the break room. "Your sister seems so excited about introducing you at the gala. Is public speaking not your thing?" I force a smile. Actually, I'm the keynote speaker. Bianca isn't officially part of the program. Oh, Karen's eyebrows lift. I just assumed since she mentioned helping you. That's what sisters do, I guess. By lunchtime, whispers follow me down the hallway. I catch fragments as I pass the conference room, through family connections probably, and, as sister knows everyone in charity circles. The final blow lands at 3 o'clock. North. My office phone rings. Odette, could you stop by? My boss, Director Williams, sounds strangely formal. Something's come up regarding the International Aid Foundation event. In his office, he gestures to the chair across from his desk. Your mother called this morning. The words hit like ice water. My mother called you? She mentioned your sister might be available to represent the family at future events. He studies my face. I wasn't aware this was a family affair. The invitation specifically requested you for your economic expertise. It's not a family affair, I say, heat climbing my neck. My research on sustainable development funding is why they invited me. My family has their own interpretation. That evening, I find my apartment door unlocked. Bianca's perfume lingers in the air. Just dropping off some outfit options. She calls from my bedroom. You left the spare key in the same hiding spot since college. I follow her voice to find my presentation materials spread across my bed. The carefully organized stack of notes and graphs now reshuffled into a different order. I looked through your presentation. Bianca says, holding up a page marked with her looping handwriting. I highlighted the parts you should emphasize and added some transitions to make it more audience-friendly. My throat tightens. You changed my presentation without asking? Just little tweaks. She waves dismissively. You always get so technical. Regular people tune out. After she leaves, I spend hours reconstructing my original organization, second-guessing every section. Did this chart come before or after the funding projection? Was this statistic meant for the introduction or the conclusion? That night, sleep evades me. I stare at my ceiling, Bianca's voice echoing. You'll freeze up without help. What if she's right? What if I do freeze? What if my research isn't enough without her social polish? The pattern continues for days. I practice my speech during lunch breaks in empty conference rooms, my voice bouncing off blank walls. Economic sustainability requires structural reform, I repeat, trying to sound authoritative. But doubt creeps in with every rehearsal. I hear my father's voice. Bianca has the charm, Odette has the brains. 20 years of conditioning doesn't dissolve overnight. What if I need her help? What if I've always needed it? Thursday brings an unexpected respite. My phone rings with an unfamiliar number. Dr. Marshall? This is Eleanor Bennett from the International Aid Foundation. I brace myself for cancellation. Yes, hello. I'm confirming final details for next week. She says, I want to reiterate how thrilled we are to have you. Your economic research on sustainable development is exactly what our donors need to hear. We're so fortunate to have you as our keynote. Her words wash over me like cool water on a burn. I insist they change the rules so that only authorized personnel can step up on the stage. She notes it and tells me to wait for the official email as an approval. 3 days before the gala, I arrive at my parents' house for Sunday dinner. Bianca stands in the living room, modeling a stunning emerald gown. Perfect for the stage lights? Mother says, adjusting the neckline. We've arranged for you both to arrive together. Bianca will handle the red carpet photos. Something inside me shifts. Not the familiar knot of resignation, but something harder, steadier. No. The word emerges clearly, surprising even me. Mother's hands freeze on Bianca's dress. Excuse me? This is my professional achievement, not a family talent show. I remain seated, but my voice carries unexpected authority. Father sets down his newspaper. You've always been a team, why change now? Because I'm not a supporting character in my own life anymore. I stand, suddenly aware of my full height. I've earned this invitation through years of research and expertise, not charm, not connections, my work. The silence that follows feels like the first honest moment we've shared in years. Later that evening, my phone chimes with a text from Aunt Margaret. I'd be honored to accompany you to the gala, just us. Minutes later, an email arrives from Eleanor Bennett. We've noted your request. Only authorized speakers will have stage access. The contrast between these responses and my family's stunned silence speaks volumes. My supporters respect boundaries. My family pretends they don't exist. The next morning, I practice my speech again. But something has changed. My voice no longer wavers when I begin. I no longer start with, "I'm sorry to take your time," before making important points. I prepare a backup copy of my presentation and store it securely at my office. Eleanor sends a confirmation email with unexpected news. Speakers will receive special green wristbands limiting stage access. The evening of the gala arrives on Wednesday next week. I remove my carefully selected dress from its garment bag and freeze. There, along the seam, is a small tear, precise and deliberate, right where it would be most visible under stage lights. However, I have a backup plan. I slide the soft fabric of my backup dress over my shoulders, grateful for my foresight. The garment lacks the intricate beading of my original choice, but its clean lines and understated elegance speak of competence. Exactly what I need tonight. Better than expected, I murmur to my reflection, smoothing the burgundy material over my hips. The color deepens my complexion, making me appear more vibrant than I feel. My phone buzzes with another text from Mother. "Where are you? We're leaving in 10 minutes. I leave it unanswered, a small rebellion that makes my heart race. Instead, I call the car service I arranged yesterday. "Your driver is 5 minutes away, Dr. Marshall," the dispatcher confirms. 20 minutes later, I stand before the International Aid Foundation building, its glass facade reflecting the setting sun. Taking a deep breath, I walk through the entrance alone, my portfolio clutched to my chest like a shield. "Dr. Marshall." Eleanor hurries across the marble floor, her practical heels clicking a steady rhythm. "You're wonderfully early. Let me show you the stage setup." The auditorium stretches before us, rows of empty chairs awaiting the evening's guests. Eleanor guides me to the podium, explaining the microphone settings and lighting cues. I practice standing tall behind it, feeling its solid weight beneath my palms. "The sponsors will be seated here." She points to the front row. "And this," she hands me a green wristband, "gives you exclusive access to the preparation area and stage." Back in the green room, I review my notes one final time, highlighting key impact statements. When Eleanor returns with two distinguished-looking gentlemen, I rise to greet them. "Dr. Marshall, may I introduce Ambassador Chen and Dr. Abernathy? They've been particularly interested in your research on sustainable development." I extend my hand, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "I'm honored you could join us tonight." 30 minutes into the pre-event reception, a commotion near the stage entrance catches my attention. Bianca stands at the security checkpoint, her voice carrying across the room. "This must be a mistake. I'm part of the presentation," she insists, trying to step past the security guard. Her blue dress, clearly chosen to complement what would have been my original outfit, sparkles under the venue lights. The guard remains unmoved. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Green wristbands only beyond this point." "But I'm the speaker's sister." Bianca's voice rises. "I'm introducing her." "That's not on our program, ma'am." Several donors turn to watch the exchange, their expressions shifting from curiosity to discomfort as Bianca's protests grow louder. Mother and father hover nearby, father making placating gestures that Bianca ignores. From across the room, I notice my boss, Dr. Wellington, observing the scene with raised eyebrows before catching my eye with a questioning look. I give a small shrug and turn away, heat crawling up my neck. As I watch my sister being escorted back to her table, I wonder, should I acknowledge the awkward moment when I take the stage, or simply proceed as if nothing happened? Would addressing it head-on clear the air, or just create more drama? The seating arrangement tells its own story. Aunt Margaret deliberately chooses a table near the front, separate from my family. She gives me a reassuring nod when our eyes meet. Dr. Reynolds, my colleague from the think tank, positions himself at a strategic angle from my family's table. He catches my eye and taps his watch, our pre-arranged signal that he'll create a distraction if needed. When the lights dim to signal the program's start, Eleanor appears at my elbow. "Ready?" she asks, offering her arm as if escorting royalty. The gesture, so simple yet so profound in its respect, nearly undoes me. For perhaps the first time in my life, someone is supporting my moment rather than trying to redirect it. "More than ready," I reply, standing taller. We move toward the stage, Eleanor's presence creating a buffer between me and any potential interruptions. As we pass the family table, Dr. Reynolds engages my father in conversation, effectively blocking any attempt to intercept us. From my vantage point, near the steps to the stage, I can see Mother's fixed smile beginning to crack around the edges. Her fingers tap an anxious rhythm on the tablecloth as she realizes she can't intervene. Beside her, Bianca shifts in her seat, uncomfortable under the curious glances from nearby attendees who witnessed her earlier scene. A few whispered comments reach my ears. Wasn't she the one security had to? The master of ceremonies approaches the podium, tapping the microphone twice. Good evening, distinguished guests. Thank you for your support of the International Aid Foundation's important work. He pauses, scanning the audience. It is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker this evening, the renowned economist, Dr. Odette Marshall. Eleanor squeezes my arm gently before releasing me. I mount the steps alone, my heart pounding but my steps steady. For once, no one walks ahead of me, no one waits to share my spotlight. I am, finally, stepping into my own light. I approach the podium with measured steps, my heels clicking against the polished stage floor. The spotlight feels warm on my face, surprisingly comforting rather than intimidating. From the corner of my eye, I catch movement Bianca rising from her seat, smoothing her emerald dress as she moves toward the stage steps. There must be some confusion. Father calls out, waving frantically at the MC. The gesture reminds me of how he'd flag down waiters when his steak wasn't cooked to his liking. Mother leans toward the couple seated beside her, her voice carrying just far enough. Both daughters are presenting tonight. Family tradition, you know. Bianca flashes that practiced smile, the one that appears on Christmas cards and family portraits a touch too bright, straining at the edges. Father stands now, gesturing with increased urgency, his program clutched in his fist like a baton. The security guide, a woman with silver-streaked hair and a clipboard, marked with green wristband protocols, steps smoothly into Bianca's path. I'm sorry, ma'am. Only authorized presenters beyond this point. Her voice carries a gentle firmness that brooks no argument. I take my place behind the podium, adjusting the microphone with steady hands. The notes I've prepared rest before me, but I barely glance at them. Months of research, years of expertise, and a lifetime of waiting for this moment converge as I look out at the expectant faces. Good evening. I begin, my voice clear and controlled. I'm Dr. Odette Marshall, and tonight I'll be sharing research on sustainable economic development in rural communities. The words flow with unexpected ease. I present complex data with clarity, walking the audience through economic principles without apology or hesitation. On the projector behind me, graphs and charts, all my own work, illustrate patterns that took months to identify. I'd like to acknowledge those who truly supported me through this research journey, I say, meeting Aunt Margaret's gaze. She sits straight-backed at her table, nodding with unmistakable pride. Eleanor Bennett, seated near the front, smiles encouragingly. Pens scratch against notepads throughout the room. Several attendees type rapidly on tablets. The CEO of Global Resources leans forward, elbows on the table, entirely focused on my analysis of resource allocation models. My research demonstrates conclusively, I continue, warming to my theme, that when we empower overlooked voices within economic systems, everyone benefits, not just those previously marginalized, but entire communities. The spotlight intensifies as I move toward my conclusion. My shadow stretches long across the stage floor, somehow larger than I remember it being. The audience sits captivated. Even the waitstaff have paused to listen. Before concluding tonight, I say, I'd like to share a personal observation about economic empowerment. I straighten my shoulders, feeling taller than I have in years. Throughout my research, I've observed that sustainable growth only occurs when individuals learn to step into their own light to claim their rightful place, rather than existing in someone else's shadow. From the family table, Bianca begins applauding prematurely, a little too enthusiastically. That's exactly what our family has always. Excuse me, interrupts a silver-haired woman I recognize as the chairperson of International Aid. I'd like to hear the rest of Dr. Marshall's analysis. Her tone is polite but firm, silencing Bianca instantly. The interruption creates a ripple of murmurs. All eyes return to me, not to my sister, not to my parents, but to me alone. My family for once becomes irrelevant background players rather than directors of my narrative. I stand taller, my voice strengthening with each word. When we create systems that validate every voice based on merit rather than privilege or connection, we don't just achieve economic balance, we restore human dignity. And dignity, I say, making eye contact with donors around the room, is the foundation upon which all sustainable futures must be built. The applause begins before my final words fade. It swells through the ballroom, thunderous and sustained. The MC returns to the stage, shaking my hand vigorously. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announces, "I'm thrilled to share that tonight's event has generated record-breaking donation pledges. Dr. Marshall's research has clearly struck a chord." As I step away from the podium, several people rise from their seats, approaching with business cards extended. I recognize the logos of international organizations I've long admired: the World Bank, United Nations Development Program, Global Economic Forum. "Dr. Marshall, we'd love to discuss implementing your resource allocation model in our Southeast Asia initiative," says one. "Your analysis on microfinance applications is exactly what our Africa program needs," adds another. Across the room, my family sits in uncharacteristic silence. Mother leans toward Bianca, whispering urgently, her hand gripping my sister's wrist. Bianca's expression registers something I've never seen there before, not anger or jealousy, but genuine shock, as though witnessing something she'd believed impossible. For the first time in my life, I feel no urge to check their reactions or seek their approval. The spotlight is exactly where it belongs. The morning sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows as I stand at the podium, surveying the crowded conference room of the International Economic Summit. 6 months have passed since the gala, and here I am, not just participating, but leading the discussion on sustainable development frameworks. Before we break for lunch, I'd like to introduce Dr. Helena Rivera, whose groundbreaking research on agricultural economics complements our morning session, I announce, my voice carrying confidently to the back of the room without the microphone amplification I once relied on. The words flow naturally now, without the preparatory throat-clearing or apologetic preambles that once punctuated my speech. When a question comes from the back about conflicting datasets, I don't hesitate or glance around for support. That discrepancy actually highlights a critical point about methodology, I respond, stepping away from the podium to engage directly. The room leans forward collectively, notepads ready. Even Ambassador Thornton, notorious for his skepticism, nods with grudging approval. My colleagues no longer preface my introductions with qualifiers like, "though she's rather quiet," or "despite her reserved nature." Now they simply defer to my expertise with phrases like, "as Dr. Marshall established in her recent publication," or "following Odette's framework." The transformation isn't just in how they see me, but in how I occupy space, shoulders back, eyes level, voice steady. Later that evening, I find myself back at my parents' dining room table, the scene of countless diminishments. The setting is eerily similar to that night 6 months ago: mother's polished silverware, father's crystal glasses, Bianca seated in her usual place of prominence. "So this conference in Stockholm," father begins, cutting into his steak. "Will you be presenting alone or as part of a panel?" "Solo presentation, followed by a roundtable discussion," I answer, noticing how my appetite remains steady, unlike previous family dinners when anxiety would knot my stomach. Bianca's fork pauses halfway to her mouth. "You know, I've been reading about effective presentation techniques. I could help you prepare some audience engagement strategies." "Thank you, but I've got this covered," I say calmly, taking a sip of water. The words hang in the air between us. My parents exchange glances but say nothing. The silence feels different from the tense disapproval of the past. There's something like respect in their restraint, however reluctant. The following weekend brings a small gathering at Aunt Margaret's garden apartment. Eleanor Bennett has brought champagne, and Dr. Reynolds arrives with an elaborate charcuterie board. The conversation flows easily, untainted by competition or undermining. "To finding your voice," Aunt Margaret announces, raising her glass as sunset paints the room golden, "and those who actually listen." End quote. She presents me with a small package. Inside is a framed photograph of me at the gala podium, captured in profile as I gesture to explain a complex concept. The audience faces me, fully engaged. The silver frame bears a small engraved plate, "Your Spotlight." Back in my office a week later, I review the invitation that arrived this morning. The World Economic Forum wants me to deliver a keynote address on sustainable growth models. The walls around me now display framed awards and recognitions earned over the past 6 months. My calendar has transformed from the carefully blank expanses I once maintained to accommodate family expectations into a colorful tapestry of speaking engagements, consultations, and research presentations. My phone buzzes on the desk, Mother's name appears on the screen. She's called 3 times this week, each conversation slightly less awkward than the last. This time, she asks, tentatively, if they might attend my presentation at next month's local business forum. As I look at my mother's name on my phone screen, I wonder if family relationships can truly evolve or if some boundaries must remain permanent. Is it possible to forgive those who diminished you for years without allowing them to do it again, or is maintaining distance the only way to preserve your hard-won confidence?